you spent a lot of time in the automotive industry.
Yes, I have, 26 years.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you feel good about me asking this question, but somehow they've made those auto workers villains. No wonder they were paying so much high prices and for turning a bolt or whatever. And what the general comment in the marketplace has been that people have said, well, it shouldn't be that expensive. Someone shouldn't make that much money doing a car. I think people are pretty ill-informed about what that meant. How do you, and the growing sentiment of that, they got what had coming to them. How do you answer that? Because, you're part of the CAW membership at a time and being involved there. You were open to that criticism, that you guys were living high on the hog, and maybe you were actually no better than the conservative except with different clothing on. Was there a need of a correction? I guess maybe, and like in anything, there's always need of correction. Every market has to correct. Was anybody guilty? You think?
Well, that's a huge question, Garth. I think that's the real political pulse of, I think, difference of people's perceptions on the way things are.
And I think that's fair. I think we have to talk about that. I'm going to ask you to talk about social policy.
Yeah.
But we need to have that conversation because if you listen to the CAW guys, they would say, well, this is how it is. You listen to the people in the free market, they say, this is how it is. And what you are standing for is great conversation. Right within people, say, let's just talk about this and figure it out. I don't think there's a black and white answer here. I don't think I'm asking you for that. What I'm saying is that everything has balance. And can you be involved with something that requires maybe rebalancing and yet readjusting? Our economy is doing it. Our business sector is doing it. Our manufacturing sector is doing it. We're all rebalancing right now. You're rebalancing by bringing stuff to the table, like you're doing this. I think it's amazing you're doing that. I don't know if you're going to make a difference or not. I think you're doing something that's worthwhile. You're bringing forth conversation. But, how do you sort of defend when somebody says, well, you were the CAW, so, all the auto workers were overpaid. Then the auto workers say we weren't overpaid. And how do you sort of get in the middle of that? I guess where I'm coming from that. How do you take a position when you're sort of living in two camps?
Well, I take a position as one that I've lived the experience, right?
Fair.
As a young woman entering a non-traditional workplace.
That's fair.
Working hard and having made a choice whether or not to do one particular thing in a professional, academic way, go through other, traditional roles for women, or being the other side where my history lies in the auto industry with a family that worked very hard, lunch bucket, blue collar, but understood the good of the community. And the good of the community was to be, spending your money where you live, living a high quality life and contributing to that and to others in the community. I think essentially the auto workers have done that. They've been the driving force of the economy. Though it's been, some people say overpaid, whatever, but you were paid for a fair day's work. And that's where the economy drove wages. And I think the wages of auto workers then reflected the wages of the public sector, private sector, other workers were in comparison. So there's been an increase perhaps of wages over time, but then if we look only in the recent history, wages have stagnated for over 10 years. But what we have seen is CEOs and big bonuses for big corporate people, and I'll talk specifically about auto if you like, where Wagner himself brought in $27 million bonus the same year that I had to move my children from their community of which they've grown up and lived and over here to Whitby, Oshawa to work in the GM factory here. And on the front page of the paper, the first day we moved into our home, my son, who was 9 years old, said, Wagner, GM CEO, he's got $27 million bonus and we've lost our job? So there's a whole lot of disparities in the whole system. But it's always the little guy at the bottom, the worker, I think has been taking the rap here. And I think we have to look at that in a bigger picture and peel back the layers in the onion to say what really happened here. And if there's a shift, I think people are willingly going through that. But again, we're seeing the income of those at the top level continue to rise. The market's readjusting for some, but not for all.
It's a fair summary, really. Because
that's in a nutshell.
Yeah.
That's the best I can do.